Metal Gear Solid. It's a game that I've always been curious about, ever since I first heard of it as a youngster playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It wasn't until recently that I got to try out the original game on the good old PlayStation 1. So, is it as good a game as I was hoping? No. In fact, it wasn't anything like I was hoping. First getting into the game, I was told that it would be a game about sneaking around and evading enemies, but that's not how the gameplay works at all. While the story may star a spy who infiltrates a nuclear weapons facility, the game seldom forces you to act sneaky. Instead, there's a lot more shooting involved, and that's not a good thing, because the game was clearly not designed as a shooter. Shooting is hard. It's like trying to play darts with a sewing needle. Shooting is impractical, and you need pinpoint accuracy. You're better off using melee attacks on an enemy, but getting close isn't a good idea either, because then they'll knock you down and call reinforcements. Then you'll need to wait 10 freaking years underneath a cardboard box before the timer runs out and they all go away. And beyond just shooting, nothing in the whole game is easy to control. The character's movement is completely stilted. Just walking around feels stiff and clunky, and believe me, it is not easy to run away from an enemy like this. This problem with the controls is made twice as annoying because of the awful camera, which always seems like it's positioned in just the right way to spite you. The camera never shows you what's in front of you. Instead, for navigation, you have to rely on the radar map at the top of your screen. But there are times in the game when the radar is deactivated. During these times, sneaking around is basically impossible. Obviously, the controls and the camera were deliberately designed just to make your life more difficult. They are the dynamic duo that turns this game from an artistic masterpiece into a mediocre mess. However, there is a silver lining, and that is that the game's story is actually pretty alright. You see, Metal Gear Solid is a short game. It's only about 10 hours long. Despite this, Hideo Kojima, the artistic visionary he is, still gave the game a complicated story almost on par with that of BioShock or Phoenix Wright. Metal Gear Solid is one of those games where the story is so complicated that half of it is just cutscenes trying to explain all of the lore. Because the game is so short and yet so complex, the entire time the characters are just throwing details at you. It's so hard to follow that, in the end, the only way I could keep up with it all was by trying to remember keywords and important terms.
The nuclear weapons disposal facility on Shadow Moses Island in Alaska's Fox Archipelago was attacked and captured by Foxhound. They're demanding that the government turn over the remains of Big Boss, and they say that if their demands are not met within 24 hours, they'll launch a nuclear weapon. First, you're to rescue DARPA Chief Donald Anderson and the president of Armstech, Kenneth Baker. Both are being held as hostages. Secondly, you're to investigate whether...
There must be at least 4 hours worth of cutscenes and dialogue within Metal Gear Solid, and all of that time they expect you to retain so much information all at once. I could never understand what was going on at any given moment until after it had already happened. Now, despite all of this game's problems, including the horrid controls, the salt-inducing camera angles, and the story that goes all over the place, I still recommend that anyone interested should play it. Maybe I was leading you to think otherwise, but in spite of all of Metal Gear Solid's flaws, I still had tons of fun with it. And you know why? Well, first of all, one reason I had fun was because the game's bosses each provided me with an interesting and creative challenge. As long as I was able to cope with the controls, the boss battles were actually very fun. Most of them were sadistically hard, especially the final boss, but they all involved unique strategies and tactics that just made them very engaging for me. And MGS is absolutely rife with boss battles. There's plenty of them, and although some were more frustrating than others,
my Halloween costume? Cyborg Ninja.
Each of them was satisfying and fun. The second thing that made me like Metal Gear Solid is, ironically, considering that I was just complaining about it, the story. While at first the story seems overwhelming and stupid, later down the line I really started to appreciate it. Especially in the latter half of the game when all the plot twists start to unfold. If you can get over the fact that it's kind of confusing, MGS has a really cool story, and it's complemented by good voice acting and excellent scenes of dialogue between characters. In fact, believe it or not, the game actually tries to spread a positive message in its story. Yeah, that's right, Metal Gear Solid has a moral, a lesson to be learned. But I won't spoil it for you. If you've ever had any interest in playing any of the Metal Gear games, I highly recommend that you pick up Metal Gear Solid 1 and start from there. Or, if it's more convenient for you, just get the Legacy Collection on the PS3, which contains 7 Metal Gear games all in one. So, Metal Gear Solid. I'm glad I checked it out. It was fun, and now that I'm invested in the story, I'm ready to play the sequels. Well, truth be told, I've already played and beaten the second game, but that's another video for another time. Metal Gear Solid 1 is an okay game that doesn't play well, but can still keep you entertained nonetheless. I rate it 6 out of 10, and I hope you enjoyed my review. I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.